Welcome back, children. Good morning. This is your Professor once again in front of you, uh, explaining some topics of your history. Today, in this video, we will discuss about the last topics of your third chapter. Topic number 6: handling text, historians and the Mahabharata. So, third chapter of your history book deals with the social history of ancient India between circa 6th century BCE and 6th century CE. So, in our previous topics, we have discussed about a lot about the social history of India, ancient India. Now onward, in this next few topics, we will discuss how historians collected informations from the textual traditions to make the make the social history of ancient India. What are the different process and methods and procedures associated with making a particular text as a source to any period of time or source to history? Okay. This is about handling the text, how literary sources or how a book or a text can be read, and informations from the book can be extracted as a source to write history of ancient period of time. Different procedures are there. It is not as easy as we think that we read the book and we got the information and we transferred that information in the form of history. No, it's not that way. It's quite difficult things. A lot of processes are there. So let us first discuss how a particular text can become a source. What are the processes involved, and then after we will discuss specifically about Mahabharata, how historians handled the text Mahabharata to get informations about the social history of ancient India. Okay, before historians before decide a particular text whether it can become a source or not, they have to deal with five different questions. This is language, okay, then content, then the audience, then the author, and the place where the text is being composed, and the period. Okay, so altogether it's becoming six different questions. Okay, when we have started this topic, the first page of your chapter deals about three questions there: who, whom, and what. Okay, that three W's are being supplemented with other questions also here. I'm trying to add some more questions here on these three questions, like who is the author, whom, who is the audience for whom the book is being written, and what is the book or what is the content. Okay, तो उसको और add करके हमने बनाया language and the place where the book is being written and the period when that particular text is being composed. Okay, so reading about Mahabharata, making Mahabharata as a source, historians first try to understand the language of the text. Here, it's not only Mahabharata, it's for all textual traditions, whatever the text they are using as a source. First they try to understand the language. They examine whether the texts were written in Prakrit, Pali or Tamil languages that were probably used by ordinary people, or in Sanskrit, a language meant almost exclusively for priest and elite. Okay, so first, while reading the ancient textual traditions, historians try to find about the language. They try to understand the language, whether the book is being written in the common language which is being used by the common people in the society, like Pali, Prakrit, or Tamil, and or it is being written in Sanskrit, which we believe was the language exclusively being used by the priest class in the society or the elite people in the society. Okay, then after that, after asserting the language, they try to classify the text, or they try to classify the content. They try to see the content. Content ancient, that the content of the ancient text are of two types, can be classified into two types. One, as a mantra, or in most of the ancient texts are written as a mantra or hymns. Okay, if it is in the form of mantra, then we will have an idea about the audience also, because mantra is not being used by all the people. It is exclusively being used by some specialist people only, like priest and all. Or if the content is a story, then it can be read by other people also, okay, and common people also. And if it is being read by common people and if they like it, they may transfer it to the next generations also in the form of oral transformation. Okay, so they try to understand the content, whether it is in the form of mantra or in the form of story. Okay, then after that, they try to find out about the authors. Besides, they try to find out about the author and authors whose perspective and ideas shape the text. Now, why author is important? Because author is important, that particular text is the idea and the outcomes of the thought and thinking process of that particular person who has written that book. That is also very important. Okay, in what perspective the book is being written or the text is being composed. Okay, so the role of author is also very important. Okay, and then they will try to find out the audience, because अगर आप देखेंगे in present situations also, if somebody is writing a book, say Chetan Bhagat is writing a novel, before he writes a novel, he have a clear mindset for whom he is writing the book, and he try to write the novel as per the taste of his audience. Okay, what is basically the taste of the audience? What type of the books the audience want from Chetan Bhagat, right? So whoever is a writer, whoever is an author, will look the interest of the audience, and as per the interest and need and demand of the audience, he or she write the books or compose the work. Okay, so and then next stage is to ascertain the possible date of the composition or compilation of the text. ठीक है, कब लिखा गया, when, which period the book is being written. Okay, because that period will give us an idea, because we have many other sources through which we have got many informations about that particular period of time, and as we already know about that particular period of time through different other sources, so we can make a corroborative study, or we can compare the situations to what is written in that particular text is being supported through any other sources of that particular period of time. Okay, so the date is also very important, and then comes the place where the text is being composed. That is also very important, because the place or the area also gives us an idea. Okay, so अब देखो, it is only after making these assessments that they draw on the content of the text to arrive at an understanding of their historical significance. So after assessing, after making proper assessment about these 6 very important aspects of the book, historians come to the conclusion that whether that particular book is having any historical importance or not. And after that, if they found it is of some historical importance, then they consider this as a source of ancient history. Otherwise, they keep aside and don't use this as a source at all. Okay? So, as you can imagine, this is particularly difficult task for a text as complex as the Mahabharata. It is not easy. It is not easy for the historians to get the answer of all these 6 different questions which I told before, which we discussed before. And especially for the text, the complex text like Mahabharata. Okay? So to make Mahabharata as a source, to use Mahabharata as a source, historians must have had a very hard work to make it as a source only before. Okay? So let us try to find out the first question of this, among these 6 different questions we discussed before about Mahabharata. Let us try to understand the language and the content of Mahabharata. The version of Mahabharata we have been considering is in Sanskrit, although there was version in other languages as well. However, the Sanskrit used in this Mahabharata is far simpler than that of the Vedas. Okay, so in the very beginning of the topic only, or the chapter only, we discussed about Mahabharata, and next topic is about the critical version of Mahabharata. So here, the historians who are using Mahabharata as a source, a textual tradition to find the social history of ancient India, they are considering the Sanskrit version of Mahabharata. Dear children, apart from Sanskrit version of Mahabharata, there are other versions of Mahabharata as well. Mahabharata in Tamil, Mahabharata in other languages even. Okay, but historians here we are here considering about the Sanskrit form of Mahabharata, Sanskrit version of Mahabharata. Okay, now the language which is used means Sanskrit. The historians use Sanskrit Mahabharata, but the language, Sanskrit language which is used to write Mahabharata is different than the Sanskrit which is used to write the other texts like Veda. Confused? No, it's not confusing rather. There are 2 different forms of Sanskrit. One is very, very, tough Sanskrit, hard Sanskrit, which is not being able to be understood by all other people, common people. Specialist people only can understand these things. Okay? Normative Sanskrit, you can say, traditional Sanskrit. Okay? And other one is simple Sanskrit, and the Mahabharata is composed in the simpler form of the Sanskrit language so that common people also can understand it. Okay? Not only the specialist people like priest and all. Fine. So next is the content. Historians usually classify the contents of the present text into 2 broad heads. Sections that contain stories designated as the narrative, and sections that contain prescriptions about social norms designated as didactic. So the content of Mahabharata, while discussing the questions about the content, I told you there are two different types of contents. One is in the form of mantra, other is in the form of story. Here, the content of Mahabharata is classified into 2 different heads by the historians. One, it's narrative. Okay, they use 2 different terms. One is narrative and other one is didactic. Narrative is a part of story, a part of Mahabharata which tells us the story, different stories in story form. Okay, it's quite easy. Okay, story. So the part which deals with the stories in Mahabharatas are classified or termed as narrative part, and the other side at the same time there are some parts in Mahabharata, some areas in Mahabharata where the instructions are being given, which deals with the norms, which deals with the rules and regulations about the society. This part is termed as didactic. Okay, didactic part or didactic heads. Okay, now it's one very important aspect about this is that it is Mahabharata cannot be completely separated. Okay, the entire text cannot be completely separated as which part is didactic part and which part is that narrative part. Okay, because there is no watertight division in the text. Well, suppose a part is dealing with the narrative part or stories is being there. At the same time, along with those stories, you can see or you can find some instructions are there. It has also given some informations or some norms. It deals with some rules or regulations also. At the same time, the didactic part where the norms or the rules or the instructions are being given. At the same time, you can find some stories also there. Okay, so it cannot be entirely completely separated into two parts, but yes, it is a mixed up of things, but there are two different types of content. One is story, another one is about the rules and regulations, norms in the society. Okay, so the text is described as an itihasa within early Sanskritic tradition. Mahabharata itself is described as itihasa in some other Sanskritic text. Now what is this itihasa mean? The literal meaning of the term itihasa is thus it was, means it was something, ancient period of time or a story of the past. Okay, so if we have to translate this term itihasa into English language, then it becomes history. ये history बन जाता है. Okay, so the question is here whether Mahabharata can be considered as the history of ancient India or not. There is a division among the historians. There are two different groups. A group of historians believe that yes, it can be the history of ancient India. The questions comes whether that war of Kurukshetra or war of Mahabharata has taken place. It is said that that war lasted for 18 days, 18 दिन का वो लड़ाई. Okay, was it that? क्या वो real में था? So some historians believe that it may be. Maybe some that ancient, those places like maybe some ancient kinfolks may have this type of conflict. वो Mahajanapadas में, ancient Mahajanapadas and those places may have some sort of this conflict between the cousins. हो सकता है. Okay, and at the same time, in order to preserve that conflicts between those different kinfolks, they may have composed or they may have told these stories to the people, because in the initial stage before the writing started coming up, people were sharing their ideas, their views, their stories orally. ये हो सकता है. At the same time, the other group of historians says that we cannot accept this as a history because we have not found it yet. Yet we did not find any corroborations from other sources about that particular incident. Okay, there is, other sources does not support what is mentioned there in Mahabharata, because there is no other evidences to prove that whether that war of Kurukshetra was there or not. Okay, so that is why it's a matter of controversy. It's a matter of division. Some historians believe it can be considered as history, or some other historians believe that it is just a story. Okay. Now, next is the author. The authors are authors of Mahabharata and the date. Who wrote the text? This is a question to which there are several answers. The original story was probably composed by charioteer bards known as Sutas, who generally accompanied Kshatriya warriors to the battlefield and composed poems celebrating their victories and other achievements. So these questions, who is the author of Mahabharata, is a very big question, and it may have a number of and hundreds of several answers. So one probable answer is that the Mahabharata is may have been initially composed by those charioteer bard, or chariot poets. In ancient time, it is believed that there used to be some poets who used to accompany the rulers or the kings or the warriors to the battlefield. And they don't fight there. They didn't accompany the ruler to be a part of the army and fight battle there with the bows and arrows or something like that. But they are there with their pen and something like that, and they used to write the stories. Okay, or it may be that they see those scenes of the battle, and they make the poem out of it. They make the story out of it, and later on, after the war gets over or something like that, they tell that particular stories, how his king defeated the enemies and all. They tell the stories in the form, sometime in the form of poem, sometime in the form of songs also. This is a tradition. If you go to the the history of Nepal, if you try to understand that there are very importance of those bard singers. Okay, they sing the ancient history of the place. So it is believed that these compositions circulated orally. Then, from the 5th century BCE, Brahmanas took over the story and began to commit it to writing. This was the time when chieftains such as those of the Kurus and Panchalas, around whom the story of the epic revolves, were gradually becoming kingdoms. So, till 5th centuries, the compositions or the stories of those bard or the chariot poets were orally transmitted from generations to generations. But by 5th centuries, when the writing tradition started becoming important and prominent in society, some Brahmanas took the initiatives and they started compiling or composing those oral form of the story into the written form. That is how the manuscripts of Mahabharata, about which we discussed in the the process of making of the critical edition of Mahabharata in the previous topics, they started coming up. So manuscripts of Mahabharata is written by the Brahmins somewhere around 5th century BC. And this is the time when the Brahmanas started composing the manuscript. This is the time when the kingdoms, some of the very important kingdoms of the time like Kurus, Panchalas, which is being mentioned there in Mahabharata, started becoming a kingdom. They were in the process of becoming a kingdom. So that may be the reasons why when Brahmanas were writing down the things, they need the places. Okay, they need the reference to the places and all. So that may be the reason why the name of the places like Kuru, Panchalas are used in this particular text. Who said that? Did the new kings want their itihasa to be recorded and preserved more systematically? It is also possible that the upheavals that often accompanied the establishment of these states, where old social values were often replaced by new norms, are reflected in some part of the story. So I told you already that maybe the name of the places like Kuru, Panchalas, etc. may not be there in the original story composed by the bard poets or the chariot poets. Maybe those places are being added by the Brahmanas when they started converting that oral transmission or oral traditions into the written traditions. Maybe they have used these places as a reference. So at the same time, some of the norms and values which is being recorded and mentioned there in Mahabharata may have been taken from those places. Okay, may have been the situations there in the places like Panchalas, Kurus. Although about that the same thing is being recorded there. When we read Mahabharata today, we read about the stories of those Panchalas, Kurus and all only. Okay, so whatever the social norms, social conditions, social rules and regulations, social values are mentioned there, those social values may have been prevailed there in those places like Kurus, Panchalas, etc. Okay. We notice another phase in the composition of the text between circa 200 BC and 200 C. This was the period when the worship of Vishnu was growing important, and Krishna won Krishna, one of the important figure of the epic, was coming to be identified with Vishnu. So, second phase of the book, historians found that the Mahabharata is compiled and composed and compiled in different phases. One already discussed that it may have started somewhere at 5th century BC, and the second phase started somewhere around circa 200 BC to 200 CE. And this was the period, that 400 years was the time when, Bhaktism was being, this period is considered as the Bhakti period in ancient history. And, the worship of Lord Vishnu was very important at that time. About this Vaishnavism and all we'll discuss in our next topics later, next chapters and all. Okay, so, and Krishna, which is one of the very important character of this Mahabharata, Bhagavad Gita, part of which is included in Mahabharata, and that Krishna is considered as one of the incarnation of Lord Vishnu. Okay, so subsequently between circa 200 and 400 CE, large didactic sections resembling the Manusmriti were added. With these additions, a text which initially perhaps had less than 10,000 verses grew to comprise about 1 lakh verses. This enormous composition is traditionally attributed to a sage named Vyasa. So later on, subsequently, between circa 200 and circa 400 CE, another part is also added to the Mahabharata in the form of Manusmriti. Okay, so with these two different editions at two different phases, now the original Mahabharata, which may have been composed about less than 10,000 verses, has now become a colossal text with more than 1 lakh of verses. Okay, so this is how entirely Mahabharata is being composed as per the historians. And the second part of this composition, that enormous composition, is traditionally attributed to a particular person called Ved Vyasa or Sage Vyasa. Okay, so Mahabharata may not be the work of a single author. It may be the work of a number of authors. Thank you very much, children. I'll make another video about the next few topics, and I think that video will be the last video of the chapter 3rd. Thank you.